is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Limited Resources. This episode number 472. My name is Marshall. I'm one of your Limited Resources, and joining me on the line from, I don't know, 3 miles away, it's returning and original founder of the show, Ryan Spain. Ryan, welcome back, buddy.
Hello, I'm back. Feels like I was just here.
Yeah, we thought we'd have you come back. Yeah, Luis is actually in Ecuador on kind of a holiday vacation. And I said, you know what? This is so sweet because now that you're not in the building at Wizards of the Coast anymore, I can have you on whenever I want. And
yeah, you just get to call.
Yeah, it's just awesome. And so, you know, what that means is, when Luis goes away, I mean, sure, I'll bring in other people too, but I have my go-to guy. And that, of course, is you, Ryan. So we're going to revisit some of the stuff that we talked about last time with Arena and then answer a bunch of Patron questions as rolling
Yeah, we definitely have some Arena updates.
Yeah, things change quickly on Arena, it turns out, especially maybe it's because it's in the beta, but it's rolling right along. So yep. Before we get into that, we've got a bit of housekeeping here. First things first, channelfireball.com. That's the place to go for everything you need Magic related on the internet. And boy, they are having a blowout sale here. Their biggest sale ever, in fact, 15% off singles all the way through New Year's Eve. Now, at the time of recording, it's the 27th of December. So you don't have that long, but you do have a few days if you're listening to this early to head over to Channel Fireball, use the code YEAREND, YEAREND, all one word, at checkout. One use per customer, and you will get 15% off all singles. So if you're looking to fill out that last few slots in your deck, or if you're going to build an entire deck, this is the time to do it. 15% off all singles on the site. That is an insane deal. So make sure that you take advantage of that. The value is very much there if you can get in, within that time frame. Year end is the code there. The show is also, of course, brought to you by Patreon. And I don't mean Patreon. I mean the people on it. That's you, the patrons, the people that go on there and support this podcast as they have for a long time. And each and every one of you, super appreciated. I love to try to give back whenever I can. And one of the ways we're doing that is, Ryan, you're so lucky you get to be on for this one. Luis is going to be mad. We're going to open the Ultimate Masters Ultimate Box Topper, it's called. And this is, of course, one of those full art special cards. And this one, here, I'll tell you who it's going to go to right now. It's going to go to...
So hold on a second, because Luis always jokes, but I don't think he is a patron.
He's not.
I'm an actual patron of Limited Resources. So
okay, well, I'll tell you if you won right now. Right, you did not. I'm sorry.
One time.
It was Ernesto Gonzalez de Paz, and that is, and Ernesto comes from Madrid. So really cool. Thank you all the way from Spain, Ernesto. And let's see which one you got. I got the card right here. This is a really sweet crack-a-pack, by the way. What's the best one? I don't actually know.
Yeah, I don't know either.
I mean, they're all sweet. All right. Sweet. Well, Ernesto's going to get, pretty nice, Fulminator Mage.
That seems like a good one.
Dude, it is so gorgeous, too. The flames coming off of the Fulminator Mage go all the way to the edge. All right. Well, I'll get that thing in a sleeve. And Ernesto, congratulations, and thank you for your support on that. But wait, we're not done yet. It is the holidays after all. We're giving lots of stuff away. So I've got the cards from the last however many crack-a-packs here as well, including the Duretti Ingenious Iconoclast, the special one that you can only get from Wizards if you bought that expensive thing that was donated by another listener. Thank you for that again. And this is another full art and foil card. And then also there's a Watery Grave, an Overgrown Tomb, and some other kind of standard stuff like a Ritual of Soot and a Tajik and stuff. So this is going to Russell Kamor from San Diego, California. Russell, thank you so much.
0 for 2. This is rigged.
Yeah, you are not faring well in the game so far, but you have one more chance, Ryan.
All right.
And this is, of course, our playmat. I do this every week. And this playmat is kind of funny. It has actually a lot behind it. I'll say who won it first. It goes to Stephen Foote from Chelsea, Mass. Stephen's a relatively new patron, but got right in there in time. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. This playmat is from GP Austin in 2012, and that makes it pretty old. Also, there's a couple of things to note about it. The first thing is the artwork. I haven't seen a playmat like this in a while, and I think I'm kind of maybe better off for it. But basically, it has this like sort of scantily clad battle angel, and she has this huge hammer over her shoulder, and the hammer's name is Finish Her Gently. So I don't know. It's a little bit of a relic from the past, I think, in that way.
Yikes.
But this was a special event for me because I went X4 at this GP, and it was my first pro point. And B, this was my first time in the booth. That GP I traveled to,
yes. Awesome.
yeah, and BDM was there, and he asked me to come do a little segment in the booth, kind of as a limited resources host. And then they asked me after I didn't make the top 8, I made, like I said, I made day 2, and I finished X4, and then they were like, well, do you want to come in the booth and do coverage in the quarterfinals? And I just had no idea. I was like, yeah, that sounds cool. So I just did it. But it turns out the boss man from Wizards of the Coast was there, and they were looking to staff coverage spots for both GPs and then eventually Pro Tours as well. And BDM had kind of said, hey, this guy might have some potential. They put me in the booth. They liked what they heard. They gave me a shot at a GP. I did GP Seattle later that year. And then the next Pro Tour, I was there. So that was my big break when it came to coverage. So a special event for me for sure. And I will be sending that one out to you, Steve. Thank you for your support.
Maybe
I could. I don't. I always feel weird about it.
I would never do it if I wasn't asked. But if I were Steve, I would be asking you to sign that because
and if he does, I will. I mean, I've signed a trillion playmats in my day at GPs and stuff, but that's when people come up and say, "Hey, would you sign this?" But I don't know. I don't like to write all over people's stuff unless they ask me to do so.
Sure.
Although,
well, I'll tell the listeners,
I've signed some expensive Magic cards.
Yeah,
too.
if you win something on LR or whatever, and just send a note to Marsh to have him sign anything you want signed.
Yeah, I'll totally do it. Man, seriously though, like, people have me sign their Mana Wars and stuff. Love it, no problem. But some people like, will you sign my foil Tarmogoyf? I'm like, yeah, if you want. Are you sure?
Totally. The value of that Tarmogoyf?
I think so.
I think so too.
Just taking a pen to it just does kind of, even if it's the artist or somebody actually important. But he actually had a cool thing. He had a playset of them that he used for his modern decks that ran it, and he had 4 of his favorite content creators sign them. So it was kind of like a special.
Okay. It's if it's just for yourself, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I mean, it's your stuff. So let's see. All right. So let's get into the main topic. It's a discussion with Ryan, right? And because right now, boy, things are really cracking for you, Ryan, not only just for yourself with going optimal and all the stuff that you've started, but also kind of around Arena and it coming into the scene. And then, the big esports announcement near the end of the year here, and
redefining what professional means.
Yeah, in many ways, not just for the players, but I mean, I'm still figuring out what's going to be for me and the rest of the coverage. I mean, there's a lot of shaking up happening right now. And, your time at Wizards of the Coast was spent on the thing that is shaking everything up, which is primarily Arena. And now that you're free onto the world, you've got a lot to say about it. So the first thing I wanted to know was, there's been some updates to Arena itself, some changes to a bunch of things, and a lot of speculation out in the Magic community as well. Is there anything new to note since the last time you were on?
Yeah, I don't want to have a whole another huge episode on Arena since we already just had that, but it is telling that some things have changed. And my first note would be, in terms of as an Arena player, watch for change. We're still in open beta. And I expect many things about the systems around the game to change through player feedback and data before the beta tag is removed. So look for those dev change notes and keep an eye on stuff that's in them, because stuff I'm saying right now could be different in a month when they make a new big update. And to that to that end, there was a pretty big update between when I was on before talking Arena and now. And I have one correction to follow up on. I know you did already. But let's start there. I had mentioned on my first appearance that the gem value for the $100 bundle was better than the welcome bundle. That's a one-time deal, and that was incorrect. The best possible deal on gems is the welcome bundle. You get 2,500 gems for $5, and that's about 2.5 times the rate of, 2.5 times better than the rate on 100 gems, which I had miscalculated in my initial calculations. Mm-hmm. And that is interesting because it just changed. First, I think everybody should get that. Even if you're trying to play Arena free to play, you'll find if you can scrape together the $5, borrow it from your mom, whatever, the value you're going to get for jump-starting your new account for that $5 is just well worth it. It just accelerates you into a more competitive constructed deck and gets you right into playing limited if that's what you want to do as well. So I wanted to make that part clear. But it also creates a new incentive for the Adams of the world. Our buddy Adam only ever plays limited Magic with rare exception in paper, right? But like for digital Magic, he is a limited player. So for him, Magic Gathering Arena is just a Pac-Man machine that he's dropping quarters into to play limited, right? Mm-hmm. So for him,
furiously, by the way,
his
shoving quarters
his
into
collection doesn't matter. Prize packs don't matter. Wild cards don't matter. None of that matters to him. So for a player like Adam, it's actually going optimal to play your account until you run out of gems and gold, abandon it, create a throwaway email account, and start a new Arena account. And you do that because that allows you to rebuy the welcome bundle, and you're getting 2.5 times the value on your dollar for your Pac-Man machine. And it's a kind of weird extreme thing, and it's only for people who are truly the Adams who don't want to do anything but play limited. I'm not like that. Like you know me, I'm basically on Arena to play limited, but I enjoy collections, I enjoy constructed, I enjoy the continuity of my account. So I'm never going to just like have my main thing be cycling through accounts. But Adam probably should, and it's weird until Wizards changes the motivation for people like Adam. That's probably the way to approach it to get the most bang for your buck. So that's the first thing I want to mention. But then they had some new announcements in the December update. One of the main ones was a change to matchmaking and the introduction of seasons and ranks. So we'll get into some spreadsheet numbers later, but basically I would say the average gold grind, if you're doing it right, is about 1,250 gold per day, which is,
that's the whatever it's called, the daily quests plus random
win rates and daily quests, so just knowing how much you're going to take on a daily basis is good information to know. But so for matchmaking in the queues, previously it was just they say it's just win-loss based in limited in particular, that you're being matched up with someone with the same record as you. They've announced that they are changing it with this introduction of seasons and rank and stuff to have the best of one draft queue is now called ranked draft. Mm-hmm. And it is the only place where your rank increases from limited play. So if you want to increase your limited rank, you play in there. And then, but it partially match makes you based on your limited rank, even at zero, even if you're 0-2, with one loss away from being kicked out of the event.
So you're saying it will match me up based on my overall rank, regardless of what my record is in that particular event.
Right.
So if I'm really good, but I have a crappy deck and I'm 0-2, I still have to play against really good players.
Yes. And it's not purely rank. So they haven't exposed the full formula to us or anything. They've just said it's a factor. And I've definitely noticed it. The change from there used to be that if I went 0-2 in these single best of one matches, I would feel like, well, if I lose once more, I'm out. But I'm now in the 0-2 bracket or whatever. So I'm against weaker competition. And sure enough, there are times where I started a frustrating 0-2 and then would finish 6-3. Like you could rattle off 6 in a row. That feels like it just doesn't happen anymore because if I have a disaster draft, I'm still facing quality competition when I'm 0-2. So that's a little bit frustrating, but also it's just mainly to be aware of that you're being match made that way. Whereas in what they now call traditional draft, which is the best 2 of 3 and uses and is always what we call the frontline set, the latest set. So right now, traditional draft is Guilds of Ravnica only because it's the latest set. That is best 2 of 3, and it's match made based on record only. And it doesn't impact rank, so that's weird. So even though best 2 of 3 is traditionally the most competitive and, quote, serious way to play limited, it is not impacting your rank, which is kind of weird. But as a player who prefers best 2 of 3 and has an over 50% win rate, that just means traditional draft queues are optimal for me because I'm getting to leverage my better than 50% skill, and whereas if I go play the best of 1, I'm going to be forced towards 50%. And that's just a major consideration in your queue choice. But if you're grinding gold, the only limited you can enter with gold is the best of 1 ranked. So keep that in mind.
But the thing that it's like, why do I care about rank?
Yeah,
right?
And that's kind of, sorry, to loop back around, the reason why I brought up my daily gold grind back a few minutes ago at being about 1250 is because they're trying to make us care about rank because of seasons. And seasons are this new, every month you get a reward based on how high you made it up in your constructed or limited rank. And then that is reset somehow. And then the next month you start the climb again.
Okay. So I can benefit in prizes from
this. But let's get to that.
What are the
Here's
prizes?
Here's the bad news. The prizes for, if you make gold or higher, you get 1,000 gold.
1,000?
Yeah, for a month. So that's less.
But you said that on a day I'm getting 1,250.
Yeah, I'm expecting to make 1,250 gold a day, and the new seasonal rewards are offering up 1,000 a month. So
that's nothing.
So
that's a fifth of a ranked draft entry. That's nothing.
The bottom line is I don't care, and the bottom line is right now I think they're messing with stuff. I think all of this is going to change. I think there's been a lot of feedback about how matchmaking is working and what's ranked and what's not that I think they're going to listen to and probably make changes about. But the key, I also think the rewards for seasons will change.
Give me sparkle ponies, man.
Yeah, we talked about that when we were live online. Oh yeah, you came on my stream. That's right. We kind of touched on this a little bit there, where it's like I fully expect them to try to juice up the rewards for seasons with cosmetics, things that don't actually impact the friction and the efficiency of the economic engine they've built. And I'm not surprised at all that the economy of seasons is not generous right now because they're squeezing it into an already existing economy. We talked when I was on before about how the efficiency of that economic engine tries to stay the same through the manipulations and changes that they do to individual parts of it. And so when you're introducing a whole seasonal reward system into a tightly developed economic model, there's not a lot of room in that model to just give lots of gold at the, for the seasonal stuff. But what I do expect is that after they get their initial numbers and get feedback and all that stuff, the economic engine gets a bigger overhaul that may produce more value in the seasonal rewards. But if it does, of course, it will be at the cost of value somewhere else. So we'll keep an eye on that. But the bottom line is right now, I'm basically ignoring seasons in rank. It's just not. Yeah, I don't.
Honestly,
I don't
it just seems like something. It's almost like a turnoff. At this point,
it's a negative.
I don't want to play best of ones.
Like, oh no, my limited rank is rising. That means my matchups in best of 1 are going to get worse.
Weird. Yeah. That's not where you want to be. And I know that there's certain types of players that love to see things go up, numbers go up, right? And I enjoy it too. I think it's fine, but I'm not motivated enough to do it. To not play, what I would consider quotes real magic. Not the best of 1 isn't real magic, but it's just so different than the types of skills I want to test.
Right. It's just in a weird state right now that I don't expect to be permanent. I think there's too much that just doesn't feel right about the current setup to the longtime Magic player for them to stick with this. So I'm just kind of waiting for that kind of changes and not too worried about it. But I also wanted to mention deeper quest management strategies. We talked about the always spend a daily swap on swapping a 500 to try and get a 750 gold quest. That's just free money, right? Every time you successfully press that button to swap a 500, you have some expected value of more gold because sometimes it's going to be a 750. So
and it can't go down.
It can't go down. So every time we press that on a 500, it's just free gold. in the long term.
Yep.
So that means that part of your deeper quest management should be to try to leave yourself an incomplete 500 at the end of each day. So that can, if you're logging on to play in events, you're probably going to complete quests willy-nilly without really thinking, you're on to play events. That's cool. But if you're showing up just because you need to make sure you don't leave any gold on the table today, and you're trying to get to 4 wins as quickly as you can and complete quests, because the other thing you need to do is leave the day with an empty quest slot. If you finish your play for the day and you have 3 incomplete quests, you won't get a new quest overnight. So that's a big disaster. So the two big things you want to do are leave 1 spot empty and leave 1 filled with an incomplete 500. And you want to do that because then, let's say you have, let's say you accidentally complete your 500 and now all your quests are complete. Then the next day you log on and hey, you got a natural 750. But guess what? That's your only quest, and you don't swap 750s. So you have left a pressing of the gold button on the table, right? So
I see.
What you want to do is take a look. So like, let's say your 500 quest is cast 20 white or blue spells. So when you go for your 4 wins that day, play a deck that doesn't include white or blue spells. Win with your best red deck or whatever. And that leaves you... Then you can grind your daily win gold and leave a 500 for the next day to swap in case you get lucky and natural your way into a 750. So I wanted to touch on that. That was the next follow-up point. And on that front, deck, we didn't talk about like deck construction for Arena really when I was on last. And basically I have a bunch of monocolored decks that are literally, it's like 18 to 20 land and the 42 cheapest spells in that color that I have in my collection, with no regard to trying to win. That's just to grind out color quests. When you have a color quest that's 750 or something and you just want to get that gold, you can just do that. But I think,
so a color quest being you need to cast 20 red spells.
Yeah, it's always 2. It's like 20 red or blue spells or whatever. And so you can just take your mono red deck and just crank out those 20 really quickly. Okay. And also, I just generally think that if you're a constructed player, enough of a constructed player that you have a feeling about what deck you want to be playing in standard, go ahead and just start crafting that as soon as you can and get to the deck you want, right? But if you're in here for the limited and are just trying to grind your gold to optimize that kind of stuff, then I really think where you want to be putting your wild cards is into a mono red deck. You just don't need as many of them. Don't need as many wild cards to complete a tier 1 competitive level red deck. And I think it's the one that has the most chance of netting you some random wins. Mono white is pretty good at that too. With mono red and mono white, you can make low to the ground aggro decks with your trumpet blasts and your inspired charges, and just get some free wins that help out. So that's my approach to deck building, is to have lots of quest fulfillment decks. But then for an early player looking to decide where to go with their first constructed deck, I can't recommend more highly the mono red approach if you're just trying to facilitate gold for drafts as much as possible.
Okay.
And finally, and this gets us to something that I've developed since I was last on, I think it's really important to approach Arena with an understanding of your fun cost. That this is this closed system. Like with Paper and Magic Online, you could acquire cards and turn those cards into literal dollars. You can't do that here. All the value is trapped. Everything you put in here is trapped. This gets back to the Pac-Man analogy. It's like it can really sound like I'm disliking it when I say that all the value is trapped. And to me, it's just the system in place. And I'm no more resentful of Magic Arena trapping my value than I am of Pac-Man trapping my value, right? It's
what you expect.
It's what I expect. So we need to understand our fun cost, though, and for that we need math. And so I'm sure you'll link this in the show notes, and I'll speak to the major parts of it right now. But I worked out a spreadsheet to calculate the gem EV math of limited events and the gold EV math of constructed events based on a 50% win rate. And then a stream viewer, Mark Conkle, helped me out and worked out the formulas more directly so that you can actually, in the spreadsheet, adjust the win percentage above or below 50% to see how that impacts your expected value. So
what does it spit out at us?
Yeah. So what it spits out, so what we put in is the percent chance of a given result in an event. And you calculate that by saying like, okay, you're 100% to be 0-0, right? Mm-hmm. And then after round one, you are 50%. If you're flipping coins here, you're 50% to be 1-0 and you're 50% to be 0-1. That's pretty simple. So then we go to after round two. Well, you at the 1-0, you're 50% from 1-0 to end up 1-1, and 50% end up 2-0. So that's 25% each. 25% to be 2-0, 25% to be 1-1 from 1-0, and then at 0-1, you're 25% to be 0-2, and 25% to be 1-1 from 0-1. Right. So that's two ways to get to 1-1. From 25% each. So your round two totals are 25% to be 2-0, 50% to be 1-1, and 25% to be 0-2, right?
Yep.
Now you can just keep splitting it. You just take each of those, that 25, 50, 25, and you divide each of those in half to see, well, half the time this happens. And whenever you hit a result that would end your event, you stop splitting that branch of the tree, and you just work that all the way down, and you can get the percent chance of any particular result happening. And we know how many gems they reward for each individual result. So if we take the gem reward for a given result and the percent chance of that result happening and multiply those together, you get your gem EV. That's how often you expect to get that much from out of that event. And that's how like Vegas slot machines calculate, if you see a Vegas slot machine that says 98% winner or whatever, it just means that for every dollar you put in, you can expect to get 98 cents back out of it, right? And so on our Magic Arena, so there were some surprising things. I have kind of instinctively shied away from sealed deck. It just didn't seem like the value was there, but I hadn't really done the math. And it's kind of interesting because the EV of a sealed event, gems in, gems out, on Arena is 50.12%. So you expect to get a little bit more than half of your gems back. Ranked draft, which is where you win 7 or lose 3 times, is 46.3% EV. So it's a lower EV. And traditional draft, which is the best 2 of 3 we're talking about, is 47.19. So they're all in a fairly tight range. But interestingly enough, the sealed deck is actually the EV winner. But I still don't think that makes it the play choice winner, because again, we're not on here just to get the best rate of return we can, because it's still negative. In all of these, we're losing money, right? And so for me, it's about what is my cost per game? How much am I paying for this experience? If you look at it that way, it changes dramatically, because then because even though the ranked sealed has the best return on your investment, their investment is much higher. It costs 2,000 gems to enter a sealed, whereas it only costs 1,500 to enter the best of 2, the traditional, right? And so the results there are, let me do this. So on ranked sealed, cost of gems per game is 174 gems per game on sealed. All that great data. And then it's 85.2 gems per game on traditional draft and 70 on ranked draft. So really, if you're looking at things from a gems per game standpoint, ranked draft suddenly becomes the number one. And then you can, look at the cost of the games per dollar. And basically that's where you see the draft stuff starts to look a lot more appealing compared to sealed when you look at it as at a cost per game level, which is what I like to do, because again, that's a more realistic embracing of the no value escape model that Arena is using.
Okay, so that makes sense for comparing like sealed to draft. But did you what does it look like for constructed? I mean, I know our audience is primarily looking to draft, so that's the most important part. But I mean, I assume most players will be doing some combination of both. So what's it look like for constructed?
Yeah, if you enjoy both, there's really good news for you if you're just reasonably good at constructed, because constructed is gold in, gold out, whereas limited is gold or gems in best of 1, and gems in best of 3, and gems out. So constructed is gold in, gold out, and is really just a question of can you make more gold than you paid to play. And the good news is that unlike the 70s and 80s win percentage you need to go infinite in limited, in constructed it's 57% and 55% for constructed event and traditional constructed event. So yeah, you don't need to be that good at constructed to come out ahead in gold, but you do have to be playing constructed. So like I'm probably 55% or better at traditional constructed win rate, but that's not how I want to spend my time on Arena. I would rather just pay the cash to get the gems to do the drafting I want to do. But if you love constructed and you're good at it and you love limited and are trying to balance that, then really the right path for you is to grind some gold every day on constructed. And then when you get enough gold from the constructed, you can take that to a gold entry limited and try to turn that into some gems.
Okay. Now, so that was a kind of a big picture breakdown on your spreadsheet, but people can also go on your sheet and estimate their own win percentage and then get those numbers for themselves specifically. Right.
Copy the sheet and then you can change the player win percentage number. It's in red and it's 50% as default. You have to copy the sheet because you can't edit mine. But then once you've made your copy, you can play around with that win percentage and figure out where the different lines are for you. Or, it's interesting to see where EV turns positive. That's always an important line for gamblers or anybody looking for a return on investment. So yeah, you can.
That's awesome.
It. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, that's really, really cool and really useful.
And you can see the impact of like if you're a 65% win rate at traditional where you're matched on win record only, and then you're 50% ish at best of one because they match you on rank, the numbers change wildly, right?
Yeah. Oh, I bet. Wow. Yeah. And then that can be expected as well. Also, you hit on this, of course, but it is really important to note that it almost is never going to be just about EV because this is your free time and this is your hobby. This is what you want to be doing with your time. So it would be really silly to simply approach it from an EV perspective unless you just literally didn't care what you were playing as long as it was Magic. But I've never met a Magic player like that.
No, so. You want to work backwards from your play goals. What are your play goals on Arena, and what is your budget, and how do you optimize the system to manage those two factors?
Okay. Well, wait. Okay. That's good because then let's just present a use case. And going back to your example before of Adam, who also reflects me pretty closely as well. What's his mode then? Well,
his mode is, like I said, for Adam specifically at the extreme end of the bell curve he's on is to create throwaway email accounts and
Okay. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Create new accounts to take advantage of the welcome bundle. That may be a little too fiddly for Adam. Like Adam specifically might value the time that he would need to create the new email account and make it and quit the tutorial and that kind of stuff. It's about 20 minutes to go from creating a new Gmail account to being able to enter a limited event on Arena off of that account.
I also wonder if that's sustainable.
Yeah. I don't know if enough people do that, Wizards will close those loopholes.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean.
Which is why I have suggested to Adam that he might want to take a weekend to create 20 accounts and buy a welcome bundle for all 20 accounts so that if they make any changes to this system, he's still got those in the bank.
What if he doesn't care which draft queue to join as long as it's booster draft on some level? Is there a strong push to either one?
Yeah, my suggestion there would be to basically say, do I have enough gold to enter a best of one limited event, a ranked draft event, and is there a format that I enjoy? All of this again comes to joy. Like if you don't enjoy the offerings for any of your gold or gems currently, just bank it. Wait, come back later until there is something. If you don't like the current limited format, sit on that gem stash until the next set comes out, if that's what it takes. And believe me, that's the stuff that makes Wizards sit up and take notice more so than your angry tweet.
Totally.
So anyway, my starting point is, do I have 5,000 gold, and is there a gold entry limited event that I enjoy? If so, play in that. If I'm out of gold, but I have the gems for a limited event that I enjoy, I'm going to play in that. If I'm out of gold and gems, I'm going to buy the $100 gem bundle and start playing again.
Rinse and repeat.
Yep. If you are out of gold or gems and cash, then you need to enter gold grind mode and start using the optimal quest cycling stuff we were just talking about until you have 5,000 gold for a gold entry limited event.
And in that case, you're probably going to be playing some constructed too, right?
But if you look at if it's 5,000 gold to enter and proper gold grind techniques can net you 5,000 gold in 4 days, you can free to play and draft every 4 days minimum.
Okay. Yeah, that's good. And you're still playing Magic in between.
Win and still draft every 4 days.
Yeah. Okay.
Win.
And by the way, that brings me to the next question I have for you before we get into our listener questions, which is at least related to this, which is how's the stream going? And the reason I ask is because Ryan has it broken down into kind of 2 accounts on his Going Optimal stream.
Yeah.
One of them is the free to play account, and although that does technically include that welcome bundle. And the other one is your personal account where you're allowed to buy with gems and as you see fit, right? Within reason. How is the free to play account going? Because that's a use case that's a real life in the wild, good limited player jamming and trying not to put any gems into the thing. So how's it going?
Well, let's see. I started it on my first game. I've tracked every result. So I have started on November 30th. And I've been winning at a 63-ish% win rate, which is good, probably better than I am. I think I'm starting to regress a little. I was at 65 before. So,
I don't know. Also, you're streaming, dude.
Yeah, it does make it harder. But just for reference, this is a 60. So winning at 63%, playing from November 11th, from November 30th, I've played in 18 drafts. So in about a month, paying nothing but the $5 welcome bundle, I've played in 18 drafts.
Okay.
And
that's great.
Yeah. And right now I have gold banked for another draft. It's just that I don't like the current, right now the current gold entry draft format is just Guilds of Ravnica. And if I'm going to do that, I'm just going to do the traditional.
Okay.
So
but that's over 1 draft a day.
No, that's a little under, right? Like
I'm sorry, 1 draft every 2 days.
Yeah. Because even if I'm not winning any at all, I'm drafting every 4 days. So basically my win rate allows me to increase my draft frequency from every 4 days to every 2-ish days.
And it's a little more than every 2 days.
More than 18 and
in 28 or something like that. So it's actually quite good.
Pretty good. Yeah. And that's where the exact EV. Keep in mind that my EV tables are purely about the expected value of the gems you put in, presumably, versus the gems you get out. But gold is this grindable resource, and so basically, there's a way in which all of your drafts are even cheaper than I have indicated because of the free one you get every 4th day. Right? Like that you're getting something back at it. Like every 4th day, you get enough gold to basically get a free gem entry. And
if you optimize for it.
Yeah, if you optimize for it. And then you're going to get some gems back out of that. And those gems that you get back out of that, you then spend on these other events that I'm providing the EV for, but it doesn't take into account that not all of the gems that you entered with came from the store. Some of them came from grinding gold and turning that into gems. So the cost is even lower than I've expressed in the tables based on how much of your optimization of gold grinding you do.
Okay, I want to get back to your stream, but also I just want like a broad do you think it's good? Like it sounds like it's actually pretty reasonable to.
Oh yeah.
Like this doesn't sound like one of those things where I'm like, well, crap, Arena's really sweet, but if you don't have dollar bills, forget it. It sounds like no, you can kind of do it.
Yeah, you can kind of do it. The only real drag is if you are Adam with no money, right? Like all you want is to play limited, and in order to accomplish that, you need to play a bunch of constructed for 3 days in order to unlock your limited experience on the 4th day.
Yeah, so that is kind of a bummer actually, because a lot of us are Adam with no money.
Yeah, but if you but Adam with no money should learn to love constructed a little bit. It's not that bad,
Agreed. I agree. Have some fun with that. Yeah.
And
how's the stream going?
Stream's going great. We started again on the first announced day of streaming was 11:30. So we've been almost at it for a month, and the coming on the show last time and announcing the stream really just gave a steroid shot to the whole thing. And I went, basically Twitch has a couple tiers of involvement. You can be affiliate, and then you can get to partner. And just based on the huge influx of LR listeners, I qualified for partner in the minimum amount of time, such that when I applied for it, they said, it's nice that you qualified, but can you stream for more than 12 days before we make you a partner?
A little too fast for their taste.
So they told me to keep streaming and come back in a bit on the partner front. And I'm unfortunately working through some back end issues on affiliate, so I'm also not able to take subs and stuff yet. But we'll get there. All that stuff will work itself out. The main thing for me, I went into it with the philosophy that we had starting limited resources, which is to produce quality content on a regular cadence. And you start there and let the rest work itself out. Unfortunately,
people appreciate that, man. They do. Like, they just don't need to be. You don't need to put stuff in their face all the time. You don't need to say, "Do this, do that, go over here, check this out, be like, subscribe." You can lay off on that stuff if it's good. They'll
if you build it, they will come, kind of deal. So that's what I've been doing, and
awesome.
Yeah, and the community's been great. I've made some mods out of the early viewers, and they've been helping me out a lot. And as I've been told my viewership, and I'll tell the listenership, man, it's an amazing way to start a Magic community when you work from the limited resources listener base. Like, you're just going to have a great community. Because our listeners are
extremely lucky. Yep. Yeah, our listener base is awesome. You can go on any of our groupings on the Patreon. You can go on the Reddit, on the subreddit. I mean, or you can go like in our Discord. All of it is just super nice people.
Yeah, and people who find my stream who aren't aware of the show or what will say like, "Wow, this chat has a really great vibe, really positive, nice group of this isn't like other chats I've noticed." And
yeah,
makes me feel good because I know
that's awesome, man. And you're building something out there. I love it. I love seeing it. And I'll be your first sub if they'll let me.
All right, we're trying.
Once they open the floodgates. Yeah,
help the streamer out, man.
That's right. Okay, well, let's get to some questions. Speaking of our wonderful community, they have sent us questions for you. So the first one comes from Hogan, who says, "Please describe some MTG variations that no one has heard before, or that you could only do at WotC." And the example being like Future League. Is there anything that happens in the building or that you saw there that you can talk about?
Let's see. I don't know about wild formats. One of the
I know playtesting's a lot different in the building.
Yeah, but let's see some formats that are WotC specific. There was everybody gets a booster box of the new set. This didn't happen. It was kind of trailing off when I started, but there was a community of box sealed. It's kind of a GP event.
Oh yeah,
GP side
I've done one
now,
of those.
Right?
Yeah,
that was kind of a WotC thing, since everybody would get a new box and you just wanted to open it anyway. Be like, all right, let's play full box sealed. So that kind of started at Wizards.
Pure nonsense, by the way. I've done it and it's stupid. Yeah. So I had 3 planeswalkers.
Louise described that the kind of almost Pai-Gow poker Magic setup, which is where you take a booster pack and put it into 3 separate piles that are your hand.
It's 4 3-card decks is how we play it.
Yeah. That's a weird one. And then you're basically playing you're playing these heads up matches with these 3-card decks until someone is the clear winner of all of them.
Yeah, that's right.
No, some of the play opportunities that, like, I think the kind of the insider fun stories that you might enjoy more so than like just a different format, or just what kind of loose organized play stuff there was to do at Wizards. And Bill Stark famously runs draft night at Wizards, where you basically every Wednesday anybody can meet in the big conference room and draft and have pizza, and the pizza and packs are provided by R&D. So it's just R&D supporting Wizards folks playing more Magic. So that's fun. And then there's, if you're a Magic Online player, you might notice that there are employee events that pop up now and again that require an employee ticket to enter. And those are basically our digital pre-releases. And the sweetest thing about the digital pre-releases as a WotC employee is that there's internal prize support in the form of foil boosters. And these are handcrafted boosters. So basically, the people who organize these events take factory sealed incremental, foil sets, complete foil sets, and randomize them into new booster packs that contain like 5 commons, 5 uncommons, and 5 rares. Or it's like some distribution that's crazy because you're working with a one of set, not actual boosters, right? And those are because you get some wild stuff in there when you get.
That's sweet. And I want some of those.
You get one for every win you get in those events, and so it had enough value in those that I would tell my family when those. It's like, okay, it's a pre-release weekend. I'm going to be on Magic Online all weekend.
Yeah,
trust me, totally. I have to.
Yeah. A related question from Starbright says, "What's your favorite crazy or funny thing that happened while working at Wizards?"
Really, it was probably day one in that I've told the story, but
I love this. Yeah,
I didn't get the job I applied for. They gave it to somebody else, but they said, "But we like what we saw in the interview and are looking to have a different role for you." And I then got this role as for Magic Online, game designer on Magic Online, basically. And I thought that meant that I was going to be on the Magic Online team, but I had been working with R&D in this process, and basically they created a position for me in R&D to be their liaison to Magic Online. But I didn't really understand that coming into the building. So day one, I go in thinking that I'm going to be in the digital department, and instead they sit me 4 desks away from Mark Rosewater, who comes over and immediately shows me his latest, Tales from the Pit, and is asked for his opinion on it. And I'm trying to play it cool, like I knew this was the deal. And then almost to polish it off, I'm trying to play it cool. And I asked my boss, Ken, what I should be doing on my first day. And at this point, they're working on the first revision of Duels of the Planeswalkers. So like Duels of the Planeswalkers had come out in 2009 or something. And this was the first time they kind of overhauled it. He said, well, why don't you just, play through the tutorial on the new duels and give us some feedback on that. And so I sat down to play it, and it opens with a series of, magic puzzles or whatever, or magic sequences. And the first one that's there is called Welcome to the Pit.
That is great. Yeah, boy, what I remember messaging and talking to you after that first day, and it was like, dude, I'm like 2 cubes away from Rose. I can hear him right now. I'm like, wait, what?
That's good, to be fair, but I got him extra life.
That's not what was supposed to be happening. Next question is very topical. Hi, Ryan and Marshall. How do you guys feel about Best of One being the competitive format of choice for ranked play on Magic, the Gathering Arena? As a big fan of sideboarding, this doesn't feel like genuine Magic to me. So we touched on this before, but what is your opinion on it?
I'm a little surprised that they. What surprised me is how Best of 3 seems to be being marginalized. I fully expected Best of One to occupy an equal pillar for competitive in terms of the average player. When I was working on these systems, we agonized a lot about how much to elevate Best of One. When we got support from R&D that they too agreed that Best of One should be a going competitive concern, that kind of released the floodgates on that type of work. And that's where I felt like it was becoming this equal partner, that we needed to compete with other games in the industry that were only taking 5 minutes to play at a time. I don't know if we'll see Arena on like phone mobile, but I expect it to be on tablets and stuff where you need to be able to play quick games to compete.
I better get it on my phone, buddy.
Well, I think, yeah, but let's not get into that right now. Just let them wrestle with that problem now. It's a challenging game to get onto a phone, but yes, I always knew once R&D was on board, that best of one was going to become a legit way to be competitive on Arena. What's really surprised me is the full embrace with the we don't know the full details of what's the new Pro Tour called, Marsh?
It's called a Mythic Championship.
Right. So we don't know the full details of Mythic Championships, how you get there from Arena, how Arena folds into that. Like, that's the stuff that's really going to make or break whatever systems they're trying to put in place here. But what's odd to me is that best of three has been relegated to traditional and doesn't impact rank and doesn't appear to be part of the competitive landscape on Arena right now. If you want to be the number one drafter, you get there through best of one. If you want to be the number one constructed player, you get there through best of one.
That doesn't
feel right. And that's why I say I feel like we've heard enough of that feedback that I'm expecting changes.
It just seems like
we'll definitely get a response.
It just feels like such a natural fit just to say competitive is best of three. And, they used to call it quick, but then they changed the name twice or whatever. Right. But, the one that when you can't sit down and play a half an hour is the best of one. That seems totally natural to me.
Yeah, I get it. I mean,
there's a big discussion on Twitter today about best of one potentially being something to use for competitive play, not just on Arena, but kind of to decide a tournament. Right. And that's that to me is another separate question, but still, it feels like, look, when things change, I'll embrace them if I evaluate them and think they're good. I remember when leagues were coming to Magic Online, and Luis and I were all over it, right? Yeah. We did a whole show where we said how great leagues were going to be and what a great idea is, even though underneath, it bothered me. I'm like, well, this is a little bit less pure of a draft thing, but I'm just like, the payoffs are so high versus the cost, and I'm fully behind this. Yeah. But, if it ends up being, well, we want the game to be, quicker and easier and blah, blah, blah. I mean, to me, the costs are much, much, much higher. So for making it best of one for a truly competitive environment, it just it's a fundamental change to the way that you design cards, design sets, and build decks, draft them, what you play, what you don't. And it makes me feel like you give up a lot of the design space and interesting risks versus rewards and things like that.
Yeah, a lot of what makes Magic work as a competitive endeavor is the sideboarding, the ability to say, yes, you won your Dredge, you played Dredge and won in the first game, but I actually have the capability to defeat you in the next two. And so I get that. It's just it's a difficult challenge because Wizards is trying to compete on the esports stage with games that are easier to grok, flashier, and faster. And if they decide that the way that the new influx, let's say Arena is super successful and brings a bunch of new players into Magic, but all of those new players are coming from places where best of one is the norm, and this new community just embraces best of one as real Magic. Well, where does that leave us fogies, right? And Wizards has to figure that out.
I mean, I would adjust to it, but it's just, I would anticipate sweeping changes to the way that Magic cards and fundamental Magic strategy are put out.
Yeah, it almost seems required, but then that also strips away what makes Magic so unique in space.
And that's the part that makes me nervous because, look, whenever I've seen, I have some experience with this with Canadian Highlander, where it is best of three, but there's no sideboarding. And I love no sideboarding, but also I know what it does to formats. And what it tends to do is you'd think everybody would try to meet in the middle where they're like, okay, well, I'm going to have a game plan against everything. And it doesn't. It pushes it to the far extremes. Everybody has all-in game plans that just hope to not hit the one game plan that they're not good against. Right. And it's just how quickly can I do the thing that my deck's trying to do, because disruption becomes absolutely terrible. Like you don't want to put Essence Scatter in your deck if your opponent might not play a creature and you can never board it out or make adjustments to your strategy. Any type of narrow answer becomes terrible because you just might not play against a deck that plays those type of cards, and then you're just completely screwed. So instead, you're much better off just saying, here, I'm all in on this thing. Do you have the answer for it? No. Okay, then I win. And that is fine. If you're willing to live with that as a gameplay experience, that's one thing. But if you're going to incentivize all competitive play to be like that, that is a different game. and we're not talking about the same game played in a different way. That is just a different game. You just approach everything to that differently, and it becomes a lot less interesting. And the super simple explanation or kind of correlation that you can make to it is like rock, paper, scissors. It becomes very, oh, you're playing that and I'm playing this. I can't ever win. Right. And I have no recourse whatsoever to combat you. And I think that at least for somebody like me, the thing that I'm most interested in Magic is interaction. That's why I don't like hexproof. It's not because it annoys me. It's because I think that interacting with your opponent's stuff is something that you should be able to do most of the time. That's why I like sets with lots of removal, because even if you have a big bomb, sometimes it gets killed and the game continues on rather than the game just ending on the spot. I like interacting, and I like mid-range when it comes to constructed existing. I like it being where you can play a deck like Jund or the Rock or whatever type of strategy uses that sort of middle ground rather than everybody being pushed to the edges.
I think longtime players are largely going to agree with you. I think one way to look at the problem Wizards is facing as a parallel is to the modern problem. Do you remember how what Wizards wanted to say, modern is real. We care about this format. It's legit. You should invest in it because it's real. And how do we show that it's real? Well, there's GPs that have it. How do we really show that it's real? Well, there's Pro Tours that have it, right?
Right.
Well, that's because, and that's important. It's very important for aspirational players. Even if like I know I'm never going to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not going to be a top Magic player ever, but we aspire to that. We watch the top players and we're trying to be more like them. We're trying to get as close to that as we can. And when you're trying to emulate the best in the game, you want to emulate it down to the format and the thing that they're doing. And so Modern created this weird problem where players loved Modern, but pros didn't, because to be good at Modern, you're best off going deep on a deck and getting really good at it and understanding the Modern metagame, whereas the pros are best at finding what's most powerful most quickly, right? They're best at assessing power in new set and applying that to breaking a format before the Pro Tour, And so there was this real problem when Wizards, the players who loved Modern, wanted to see a Modern Pro Tour to legitimize their baby. And pros didn't want Modern Pro Tours because it didn't feel like it was testing the skill that they had worked their whole Magic careers to develop. And that's really what's happening here with best of one versus best of three on Arena, in that there's a huge swath of people who love playing best of one and want to play Arena that way and want to play it that way competitively, but then they need their pros that they're emulating to be doing the same thing or it doesn't feel right. So I don't know what they're going to do. We're going to just have to roll with their changes and provide feedback through both the tweets and the data,
Yep. So we'll keep an eye on it. I mean, this is they kind of threw one thing out into the world, so we don't know where it's going to actually stick. Let's see. This it comes from Spencer. It says, "Hi, Marshall and Ryan. It's great to have another episode with the OG team. Thank you for everything you've done for the Magic community." You're welcome, Spencer. Ryan, thank you for going optimal. It's been wonderful to have more content from you. Cool. You got a fan here, right? What do you two feel about the use of simulators to practice draft and sealed?
Well, geez, aren't we kind of doing that on Arena right now? I
guess. I mean, the print runs still exist. That's always the thing that it comes down to, right? Is does the simulator simulate print runs, or is it actually just random?
Right.
Because the actual random, you actually are losing out quite a bit, because you'll find packs and runs of packs that you just can't possibly get in the real world. And that really does kind of screw things up.
That's true. But is it useful? Is it worthwhile? Well, sure.
Yeah,
sure,
I think it
right?
is.
At the end of the day, regardless of whether this is a realistic, this would happen in real life pick, I still have these 5 cards in my pile, and I'm still looking at card A and card B and pick 6, and it's tough. That's ultimately the fundamental challenge of draft. And I think that challenge comes through in those simulated drafts, and you're going to get that kind of card evaluation, pick making process work that ultimately gets you better at it. So is it ideal?
Yeah.
No, but is it real practice? Is it make your Magic brain better? Sure.
Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Next one comes from Jonathan, who says, Hi, guys. Thinking back to the early years of LR, what has changed the most about limited Magic? Do any of these changes affect the principles or axioms governing how you approach limited? For example, people say that blocking is no longer an evergreen mechanic. So we should look to draft aggressive decks more often. Others say marrying your first pick is not as bad anymore because most sets have plenty of playable cards. So getting cut in your guild or colors is not as punishing. Thanks. Yeah, that's a good question. And there's actually been a lot that's changed. The biggest change for me has been the way that removal's printed.
For sure.
Right? We used to get common,
Doomblade.
super efficient, Doomblade level removal. In fact, I wrote a whole column about this for Wizards a few years ago. And that fundamental change changed a lot of things about the way that we approach it. I think the other biggest change, it might even be bigger than this, is something that Jonathan mentioned here, which is that the range of playables is much more compact now. The worst card in a given color is often fine. Like, if you go to like red or something, it'll be like a 3/2 vanilla, right? And that's a card that you like really hope you don't put in your deck these days. But you know what? It attacks and blocks, and it's not that bad of a deal as far as the vanilla test goes. It's like, fine. And you will find that it is very, very rare these days that you don't have enough playables. Now, my definition of playables has changed, right? It's always relative, right? Like that's why Fearless Halberdier is not a card that I think is playable, even though you can totally put it in your Magic deck and turn it sideways a few times and have it do things. So
playable has taken on a new meaning in the
it has. It really has. And it's actually just stumbled me up a whole lot because I will say as shorthand, that card's unplayable. And they say, well, what do you mean? It's okay. It's a 2/2 for 2 or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm not saying that you literally can't put it in your deck. You can put almost every card in the set in your deck outside of some of the rares, but relative to the things that it's going to, that you should be or could be playing over it, it's not playable. Those to me are the two big changes from when we started LR.
Yeah, the removal thing is big, although, I got to give us some credit for early LR in that we were focused on card evaluation as a general skill. And
yep.
One of our early episodes, in fact, was called Breaking Bread because it was this concept of, that you can just distill Magic drafting down to an acronym. It was BREAD.
Some algorithm.
And it was basically bombs, removal, evasion, and then it always nobody knows what exactly. Who knows about that? But the point is, we were from the get-go saying, stop that. You got to actually look at the piece of removal and say, is this good removal or not?
Yeah.
But it's certainly something like bread was far more true when we started, where if you weren't really that thinking of a player and just wanted some easy heuristics, certainly taking removal spells was a much better bit of advice back then because anyone you took was probably the best one in the pack. Whereas now there's removal. It's technically removal, but it's 13th pick,
Yeah, or it's tier 2, right? It's 4 and a red sorcery, kill something. But there's a lot of creatures you would take over that removal spell, but not a lot of creatures that you would take over, 1 and a black, kill something.
I think that's the main thing. And I would say, though, on, you brought up, you should, blocking isn't a thing as much, so you should draft aggro. That's very format specific, right? I think that this is what we've always been striving for, is to drive home that you need to take your previous knowledge and contextualize it with the current environment to understand how to adjust, right? So when, you and Luis were super wrong ultimately in your set review about Amonkhet because it was filled with cycling. It looked like it should be this totally go long format, right? And then it turned out, no, it was one of those no blocking formats. And I don't think it's necessarily realistic to be able to do a set review and fully process what density of no block type effects there are when you're reading 300 cards or whatever. And that's the stuff that shakes out in the early days of a set. And so I wouldn't change your strategies for a block based on the trends of limited set development. I would continue to look at each set as it comes, looking for what is good. What do we think is going to happen and why? And the why is so important, and that's why it's okay to be wrong on the set review show if you can explain why you think cycling is going to make for a more controlling format. but then you can use that why to understand, oh, and here's the stuff we didn't understand that changes the why and allows us to reform our opinions.
Right. Jonah says, hey, Ryan and Marshall, it's great having Ryan on the show more. When I started listening to LR, I made sure to start from the first episode, and I don't think anyone can say enough about how important the Ryan era was to getting the show grounded and going. And I agree with that, Jonah. My question for the two of you is this. How strong does a gold card need to be in order to be first pickable over a comparable single color card or even colorless cards? And then how does this vary between gold set like Guilds of Ravnica and a regular set like
there's a huge swing there. That was going to be my first thing. Like, to me, there are basically only 5 there's 5 things to be in Guilds of Ravnica, and one of them I don't want to be in is Selesnya. So like I had a moment today on stream where pick one was Rock Charger versus Artful Takedown. And the notion of gold card versus monocolored card came up in the discussion of that pick. And I really, even though we ended up in Selesnya, I kind of saw those as both gold picks because of the nature of guilds. I saw Rock as a Boros pick, and I saw Artful Takedown as a Dimir pick, right? So in a set where I can expect to land in one of a handful of 2-color pairs because of either the nature of the set, like guilds, where there is only 5 supported color pairs, or a set that just went off the rails and has a bunch of unplayable colors or something. I think kind of Ixalan was a little bit like that. Like it felt like there was only 4 or 5 things to be in Ixalan.
Yeah, because the tribal stuff.
And so in those sets, I don't. It doesn't have to be much better at all. It doesn't have to be significantly better for me to want to take a gold card, because in a sense, all the picks I see look like gold cards to me, even the monocolored ones. Yeah. But
you're doing a translation when you look at a card like that. Yeah.
But in a more traditional set, in an Origins type set or something, it's got to be significant. But it's hard to come up with a specific number or metric even to explain it. But like, if it's something that you would think of as typically a 3rd or 4th pick in power level in a monocolored card, and then there's this gold card that's 1st or 2nd pick quality, I'm going to take the gold card and take a flyer.
Take a shot.
You just have to draft the hard way. Follow Ben Stark's advice and go ahead and take that pick if it's that much more powerful, but just be prepared to not have that overly influence your future picks.
Yeah, another thing that comes in a lot in many sets is the fixing, right? So if I take a gold card first, is there a chance that I can splash it? Like, for example, if my gold card is green-black and I end up in green-blue, is there a lot of good fixing in green that I can splash the black easily? Also, are there other cards in the set that are easily splashable in that color that I could get, right? And a common thing that happens in Guilds of Ravnica, as an example, is you might be in Dimir and you open up like your 2nd pack or whatever, and maybe you pick up something like a lava coil, right? And you're like, okay, I'm looking to splash this lava coil. But part of the reason why you might take that over something that's like fine for your deck, like a Whisper Agent or something, but not really great, is you might think I might be able to splash a Hypothesizzle as well. I might get one of those later on. And so you can reverse that around and say, I could take the Hypothesizzle here and I might be able to splash, something like that, like a lava coil or something like that down the line. So, but again, mainly is it in a color pair that I can reasonably expect to be able to have at least a shot at splashing? Because look, if it's all or nothing, it's a pretty big risk to take, right? If it's just like, if I'm not in both of these colors, I can just never play this card. You can make a pretty strong argument for the monocolored card.
Yeah. Splashable.
Yeah. Alex says, hey guys, long-time listener, first-time caller. I'm curious, Ryan, what your favorite part of working on Arena was.
Probably the most invigorated I ever felt on the Arena team was when we were prepping for the big announce, really. We were announcing the existence of Arena at HasCon. It was the Hasbro did a convention. It was a little weird because when you're when your business does something like, all right, we're going to have a convention on this date in time in September, right? Like it's locked, there's no fudging around that date. And if you're going to announce something or launch something, then it's got to be good. And we had gotten decks from R&D of Dinos versus Pirates as a way to
I remember playing those when they had the setup at the GPs.
That was set up the GP and stuff. But
the Pirates deck was nice.
Well, so when I got them, there was a big problem. The first in our testing in R&D, they had been running about 50-50. But when we unleashed them on the Arena team for testing, the Dino deck was just crushing Pirates. So there was an imbalance there. And also, the pirate deck was playing kind of a control role and wasn't putting a lot of permanence on the battlefield. It was doing things like, taking cards out of your hand and casting instants and sorceries and not building up a board. And so it was less interactive and a lot less fun because players don't like hand destruction and counter spells, and that's kind of where that deck was at. So I had this challenge to bring the win percentage, bring the win rates between those two decks closer to 50-50 within at least on the team's testing, and create a more creature-based interactive combat situation. Because another thing that was happening is that when the Pirates did get lodged onto the board, they would just win with flyers, and the Dino deck would look up doing nothing. And so I just had this small window to make huge changes to this deck, and also to then stack the decks for some scripted demonstration stuff that was happening, and that was really hard too.
This makes me nervous hearing that.
Revising these decks to meet those goals, and then coming up with scripted games to show the various things that the people wanted me to show in those games were interesting, fun challenges, and then. It was very collaborative and fun to do that, and then the success was great too. I think the final HasCon win rate over the weekend was like 52-48 type difference.
Great job! Yeah, those were fun to play. I got to play that a few times.
It turns out one of the keys was the grazing whiptail. It was a dinosaur with reach, and putting that in immediately created this weird must-kill creature for the Pirates that wasn't the best deck in the Dino deck, but it was a real problem for the Pirates getting through damage. Anyway, it worked. It was great. So
that's sweet.
That was a lot of fun.
And you got to see that stuff actually in the wild. That's pretty crazy. Next question comes from Lindsay, who says, "Hey guys, first huge thank you for turning me from a limited zero to a draft hero over the last few years. Great job. I've probably won a few extra boxes worth because of your collective tutelage. That is awesome. Nice job, Lindsay. My question, with Guilds of Ravnica about to ride off into the sunset, how would you rate the set overall? I thought I'd get bored quickly because of the limited color pairs, but kept coming back for more just because the games were so good. Bonus question, what's your favorite card? This is Lindsay. You're kind of, Lindsay mentions sunset in that first thing, and then ask two of the questions that will be on the sunset show.
Well, I can answer. I'm
but I don't mind anyway. Yeah. So I want to know because, by the way, I've had a very similar. This is going to be one of my big takeaways, by the way, from Guilds of Ravnica, is that the draft itself grew stale almost. I mean, with effectively 3 decks that I was interested in, draft 3 color pairs out of a possible 10. That's a little narrow. But the gameplay was that good. I had the same experience that Lindsay had.
Yep, I would agree with that sentiment. I would say that I really I would give the gameplay like an 8 and the drafting a 3. It's that extreme. Like there's just not much to drafting at all, other than seeing if I can not be the one to have to accept the Selesnya seat. And I had to do that today on stream. I put it up for a vote, and we took the Rock over the Artful, and it was a reasonable Boros. It looked like it was going to be a reasonable Boros deck, and then it ended up being a meh Selesnya deck, and went 1 and 2. So,
so at least justice was served
definitely
as
far as
served. The guilds go.
But when I love playing a Dimir, I love the way Dimir plays. I don't even need disinformation campaign to love it. It's just The surveil feels so powerful and clever, and there's just a lot of clever feeling things you can do in Dimir. And so I like it when a set has a fun police deck like Boros, but it's not so oppressive that the control decks can't stake their claim.
Yeah, they just make you earn it. What was your favorite card
set?
In Guilds? Yeah.
Night Veil Predator? Night Veil Predator came to mind. I almost feel like if I can get any, Thief of Sanity was crazy. Like, what did I really want to open? Yeah, it was really probably just Disinformation Campaign. As much as it was like, I wish it wasn't in the set. So maybe I shouldn't call it my favorite. And maybe I'm just making a power level answer there.
That's fine. You can answer for power. I mean, if it's there, you're going to play it, right?
Yeah.
Like, even if you wouldn't have necessarily put it there yourself.
I'm just going to say Surveil. Surveil was like the thing I loved most about the set. So if it had that on it, it was my favorite card.
Ryan says, here's a thank you for the recent episode on Arena. It was the push my wife needed. My wife and I needed to try it out. Now we've already spent way too many hours playing over the holidays this week. Suckers. It happened to me too, though. Two questions. First, any updates to the Arena draft metagame in terms of what the bots are drafting or how the players have adapted? And also, what are other features or updates you guys would most like to see on Arena in the coming year? Thanks so much for everything. Arena draft metagame.
So glad you brought that
up. They
up.
Balanced it out a decent amount. Yeah.
Like I wrote my list of follow-up things I wanted to cover and did not touch on that. So I'm really glad you asked, because it is pretty important to mention that they have created personalities, at least for Guilds of Ravnica draft. So the signals that I was talking about are still important. It's just that they're going to be they're more human-like. We're back more towards human level drafting, where sending stuff to the right, sending stuff downstream to the left, you are less certain what the bots are going to be interested in because they're more human-like in their color preferences in guilds. And the same thing comes from the right as well. So I've been taking to making sure to be checking print runs. You can look up uncommon print runs for Guilds of Ravnica, and when a bot passes you a pack with a junk rare and 2 uncommons, you can go look up those uncommons and figure out exactly what the bot took, which is really important edge for a world in which the bots now have personalities are going to prefer stuff over other things. So that's pretty important. And we're just going to have to keep an eye out for what they tell us about the bot logic for given sets. I'm assuming that based on the guild's work that they did, that they're going to launch the next set RNA with those preferences in place. And that's important because it solves the key problem I was expressing about draft bots, or the key limitation is that the without personalities, they don't evolve their metagame. They're fixed. They are fully predictable once you learn what they're doing, and that's very exploitable and leads to, even when you don't know what they're doing, leads to sameness in what the bots are leaving you in a given draft, which is why Dimir was so must draft when it first launched. So I think it's interesting and great that they have mixed it up there. I think it's important. And now you get to, with guilds at least, think more along the lines of drafting with random humans who are going to have weird preferences that you don't understand and can't predict. So I think that's good.
Yeah. And then the things that we want, Ryan wanted to know as well. I want to see a few things. My needs are pretty basic. I want to see fundamental stuff put in. So I want to see Arena on all platforms. Like I've heard, I saw a Twitter thread as a result of a Arena dev discussion that was streamed that made it sound like maybe getting Arena on a Mac was not a foregone conclusion, for example. And that makes me very nervous because I think that's an oversight that, should be addressable. I mean, knowing nothing about game design, admittedly, but still, I know a lot of other games that are air quotes real games by real game companies are available for Mac natively, and I am a Mac user, so that would be just a nice thing. And then also getting it on any type of mobile device, my phone ideally, but sure, if it's on an iPad, I can make that work too. But I mean, I want to see it everywhere. I really want to see it on every possible outlet. Also, I want to see drafting against humans. Like as much as I appreciate the efforts towards, humanizing the bots a little bit more with regards to draft, it just makes me more nervous that there's a world that we live in where they say we're not going to be doing that. I would be really bummed. I'm just seeing these two tracks sort of forming, and and there's just a very logical layout for it where it's, you can play best of 3. These are competitive. These are against humans, or you can play casually best of 1 against bots for the draft, so that I can do that when I'm in line at the grocery store and put my phone in my pocket and then pick it back up later again and continue my draft. Where if I want to play air quotes real Magic, I got to sit down for 20 minutes and do a draft, which isn't a huge deal because then it's like a league like anything else, and I can come back to it later. I can build later,
right,
etc. But man, I feel like if we do end up living in a world where they say you will never be drafting against other humans on the open events on Arena, I would be really sad about that. That to me is a major step away from the authentic Magic that we were kind of promised or whatever. So those are the things that I want to see. The other one is I wish I could just mute all my opponents, because like the times when they say hello is nice, but the times when they premature GG me, I'm just like, this is stupid. I don't, I just want that off. I just don't want to hear it.
I'm with you on human drafting. That's probably one of the number one things I'd like to see. I want friends lists. I want to be social on Arena more than we're able to right now. I know that's a major goal for the team, and again, it was a matter of what was literally needed to produce a fun play experience, and it was not needed to create one, but I think it's going to be needed to sustain one. So I think it's important to let people build important, relevant communities on Arena. I think of the people I've met and made friends with through Magic Online chat, and it's not that I think we should have full chat or anything, but I really do want to be able to chat with Adam directly in Arena or whatever.
Yeah, totally. Or just for him to be able to share what he's doing, and I'm drafting, watch this.
Yeah, share a deck.
Yeah.
I would like importing to be cleaner. Like right now, and you design a lot of things, and some of them get built. One of the spec for importing decks that I made called out like, look, we need the entire world is using this format thanks to Magic Online of like importing, number, space, card name, and then if there's a space, the stuff after that is a sideboard. And like, we really need to just embrace that so that none of these sites have to change their output in order to be able to give importable decks into Arena. And they haven't done that. So it's
plus, it's also something that you can make.
Yeah, you can make yourself. You just need to remember card names.
You can just type that or paste it.
But the system for importing in Arena involves quantity, space, card name, space, set code, space, weird number that you have no idea what it means. It's like it's impossible. Like unless you've exported all the cards to even know like what the numbers are, you can't really. And the only site I've found that's done that work is MTG Goldfish. So I use them a lot for deck tech, because I get it. Like all the big sites and stuff, it's like, oh well, this is a pain. Like we can't really support exporting to Arena without going through their weird formatting hoops, and I think that's a mistake. So they should get rid of the set code and gobbledygook number as a requirement to import. And if you import without those things, it just picks versions of those cards based on recency or something. That was what I think I expect. So I'd like to see that implemented.
Okay.
Easier net decking, basically.
Man, we only have time for a couple more questions. Unfortunately, we have so many of them.
Elise has to take another vacation, I guess.
Yeah, I guess so. So sorry if we didn't have time to get to your question, but I like going deep on the ones that we do ask. So this one though is a little more surface. This comes from Matt. It says, does Ryan have any tips on managing wildcards? I understand it's a big investment to spend them, and waiting to use them wisely is good, but but I do need to use them at some point.
Yeah.
He says. So
it depends on your play goals again. If you are if you're a mostly limited, but either use constructed to grind gold or you enjoy it a little bit, then we get back to what I was talking about earlier. I think everybody should make the best mono red deck they can. You don't necessarily need to spend wild cards on it, but as a quest deck. And then if you're not deeply invested into any given constructed deck and there's nothing you have your eye on and you're not a standard, nut or whatever, and you just are trying to figure out where to go, then I do think making that quest red deck and then evolving it into the latest and greatest red deck wins is a great way to go. It's just the games with red decks end fast, so win or lose, your time per match, especially if you're in gold grind mode where you can consider yourself, you're paying yourself gold for this job, and you want to take as little time as possible. And red decks
get your hourly up.
So red decks are great for that. And because they're mono-colored and they tend to rely on a lot of common and uncommon burn spells and just dorky creatures, the number of wild cards you need to go from nothing to a tier 1 it's not always necessarily tier 1, but the best possible red deck wins deck is going to be the fewest high rarity wild cards you need. So that's what I would do. But follow your heart. If you love Teferi control, well, it's going to cost you a boatload of wild cards, but you can slowly move in that direction. But like for me, I really am enamored by the Is It Drake's deck, and it's another one that even like there's kind of two versions. There's the cast 3 spells and get back your Phoenix's version, and then there's just your straight Drake's version. I like them both, and that's kind of on my free-to-play account. That's where I leaned into. Because on free-to-play, you just don't have that much maneuverability. But, we are, again, I'm a month in to playing on my free-to-play account, and I've only spent the $5 for the welcome bundle. And I have a complete tier 1 Drake's deck fully built, So that's good.
That's cool.
So that's kind of how I would look at it is like, if you don't really care, build red deck wins. If you care a lot, go ahead and follow what you care a lot. And if you're somewhere in the middle, find an appealing looking standard deck that uses as few rare and mythic wild cards as you can. And also,
and then of course pay attention to rotation. Right? You don't want
the timing in terms of when. Like I would be, you don't really want to spend wild cards near a set release, either before it or after it, right? If you do it before it, new stuff comes out and you're sad because you want that different deck instead. If you do it right after, then the format hasn't settled yet, and you may have wild card regret based on a quickly shifting metagame after a set release. And that's why if you're a mixed player, there's really a nice cycle available to you. If you don't need to be on the cutting edge of standard and you love limited, then your basic cycle of wild card and gem spend should be when a new set comes out, focus on your limited and let standard shake itself out before you use any wild cards, and you get to gather cards from the new set through limited. And then once standard is shaken out a bit and you have a better understanding of which rares and mythics that you happen to get through drafting or whatever, you're much better prepared to spend your wild cards after that's shaken out.
Yeah. Okay. One last question comes from Rebecca. She says, I've been getting back into Magic after literally decades away. Love LR so much, so thanks to everyone. You're welcome. My question, it's a big one. I've been playing Arena and loving it. Should I also sign up for Magic Online?
We come to play goals again. I have defended the Magic Online in the face of concern from players that it's going to die. It'll probably die eventually. But I think it offers so much to so many players right now that Arena just can't even touch, that I would have no problem investing money into Magic Online play right now. I just feel like it's this amazing beast that Wizards already has working for them. They're not going to just like turn it off. Yeah. Like they would have to not be able to figure out how to make any money off of it anymore before they shut it down. And I just don't think that's going to happen.
They're still a business, right? And it still makes money, I'm assuming.
But if all you want to do is play current limited and you enjoy standard, you don't really need to go back to Magic Online. But if you care about modern, if you care about Commander, if you care about Cube, if you want to do vintage, if you like, there's so many things that can only be found on Magic Online. The question is, do your play goals involve any of those things? Because if they don't, you're fine with Arena.
Yeah, and I think Cube is really the big draw now, for a limited player, because playing and also the more authentic experience as well that we talked about. But again, I'm hoping that Arena ends up offering us something very comparable to that at some point anyway. Okay, right. Well, we're going to have to leave the rest of these questions on the shelf, unfortunately, because I got to let you go. But maybe I'll find a way to answer some of them. I'll try to look at them when I can. But thank you. If you did ask a question and it didn't get asked on the show, I do apologize for that. But like I said, we only have so much time to do it, and it's good to really kind of take the time for each question to go kind of deep on it. Ryan, thanks for coming on, man. Obviously, it won't be the last time you're on the show, but I do appreciate it every time you make the time to come on and chat with us.
Thanks for having me.
So again, where can people find you? Not just on Twitter, but Going Optimal in the stream.
Yeah, I'm streaming every day at 10 a.m. Not every day, weekdays, 10 a.m. Pacific at Twitch TV/Going Optimal. I also have the GoingOptimal.com website, and that just directs to Twitch. So you can always just go to GoingOptimal.com. That works as well. And you can find me on Twitter at Ryan Spain. And
okay. I'll make sure to put those links in as well.
The stream's been going great. Love to have you. If you heard me last time and thought maybe, but didn't bother yet, and you're hearing it now, come on, we're having a great time. We're probably
seriously. I'm in there most of the time. Also, Ryan's had me on as a guest. I got to hang out with him on the stream, and hopefully we'll get a chance to do that again as well. That was really fun, and so there's other people in there too.
Cool.
So good stuff. I want to remind you the show is brought to you by channelfireball.com. Best place to go on the internet for anything that you happen to need. I always talk about selling your cards back to them. You should make sure to check out their buy list if you need to get rid of some of the cards that you've accumulated. And then I'll also remind you about this special deal because it is really insane. End of year sale, 15% off all singles. That is the biggest sale they've ever had at Channel Fireball. And this is a company that has been around for 10 years or so. So enter the code year end, all one word at checkout, and you will get one time shot at 15% off every single that you order for that order. So what a great deal. If you're looking to fill out a deck or whatever, and you got some holiday money burning a hole in your pocket, well, this is it. This is definitely the time to pounce, especially if there's some older cards that you'd like. 15% off adds up a lot if you're trying to fill out a modern deck or something like that. So make sure you check that out as well. If you want to find me on social media, I'm Marshall_LR. Ryan is Ryan Spain, like you mentioned before. If you want to follow LSV, he's LSV, by the way. He'll be back next week. Just like I said, he's in Ecuador this week. You can find everything related to the show at lrcast.com, right on the front page. A bunch of links there for that. And thanks so much for listening. When we come back, next week, we're getting right into everything. We're going to be doing sunset shows. The Limmies are going to come back. We're going to be doing the mechanic show for whatever it's called, Ravnica Allegiances or whatever. And then boom, we'll be right into the set review as we turn our heads away from Guilds of Ravnica and onward to the next set coming out. So we'll see you then. Thanks for hanging out.
Well, I didn't think I had a sign off, and I remembered that I had one and then forgot it. And then right there when you were finishing your pitch, I remembered it. So I have a sign off.
Okay.
I just wanted to talk about a different Richard Garfield game that I'm become pretty enamored with. It is not Artifact. My policy with Artifact, as soon as I saw it, was I'm going to wait until a serious gamer that I respect and admire says, you gotta play Artifact. And you know what? Nobody has said, you gotta play Artifact.
No, they haven't.
One.
Like Artifact's not. Anyway, we'll talk about that
aside,
later.
Though, he has another game out. This one is the paper game KeyForge. And one of the gamers I respect most in the world basically grabbed me by the lapels and said, you got to play KeyForge. And this is my friend Joe Huber, one of my closest friends that I made in my time in R&D. You all probably don't know Joe Huber too by name, but those of you who enjoy tabletop gaming would most know him for his work as what R&D would call now final design on, or gameplay design on Lords of Waterdeep. So that's one of my favorite tabletop board games, and Joe was the final designer on that. So that's just to lay his cred. But anyway, he said, you got to try KeyForge. I'm like, all right, tell me. I know nothing about it. Tell me the deal. And here's the deal. If you're like me and know nothing about this new Richard Garfield game, here's the innovative, mind-blowing, oh my God, he may have done it again. So the collectible item here is not cards. It's an entire deck. So these decks are generated. They have a kind of a name that's procedurally generated. That's really weird. It's just some title,
I've seen some of the kind of outtake names.
Yeah,
from
it's
this,
just the point is it comes up with a long random fantasy name that's unique in the world, and every single card in your deck has that name on it in the corner. Like the deck is a unit. You don't trade cards for your decks. You trade decks. the deck that you get is just that's it. And and that means that while there is rarity among the cards within a deck, every deck in the world is unique. There are no two decks that are the same. That blows my mind. That's insane. And that wouldn't be enough if the game weren't good. But the game, I don't want to get too much into the rules, but it solves, interestingly, 3 of the problems I see with Magic. There's a way in which Magic is the Model T of card games, and you live and die with its various benefits, pluses and minuses. Mm-hmm. But some of the barriers or feel bads about Magic include the deck building. Like, deck building is super intimidating for people, and they do it wrong. Mana problems, mana flood, mana screw are issues that are frustrating. And frankly, card flow. Like, one of the reasons I like Dominaria is that you find yourself spending 12 mana on turn 14, and it's fun, whereas a lot of formats are like, okay, draw land, go, And so this game kind of solved all of those things. And by having these, basically there's no mana system. You just get to cast the spells what you want in your hand. But there's some rules around that. You don't get to cast anything. You basically get to cast about a third of them. But basically, the card flow problem is solved for you because you redraw up at the end of turns. And deck building is not an issue because you just have the deck. It is the object you have.
Yeah,
and it doesn't use mana, so there's no mana screw. So it solves all those problems, and the game is really fun. It's definitely casting creatures and casting things and spells. It has a magic-y feel to it, but you're not trying to reduce damage. You're trying to basically earn enough of these in-game bucks to forge a key. I mean, when you forge keys 3 times, you win. But I would say, I don't want to try and explain the game again here, just to say that the gameplay is good enough to support this super compelling, I can't get my head around it. Oh my God, what is the secondary market? Oh my God, what is it when every one of these things, like every deck you haven't opened yet might be better than the best deck you have. Right. So go get another deck, I played with Joe for an afternoon and went home and ordered 24 decks.
Oh, insane.
Richard Garfield has had various successes and failures since Magic, but this is easily the most intriguing game he's made since he made Magic to me. I would recommend checking it out.
Cool.